Not on it. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Good morning. Welcome to Break the Cage Saturday on this beautiful February Valentine's Day. And I am surprised anyone's here at all. So I'm going to thank both of my guests today for their spouse's permission to be doing anything with me on Valentine's Day. That's a very nice thing. I would have expected perhaps a small riot, but that's all right. I'm going to make one additional invitation that I forgot to make, and we'll get really started on today's episode on mindfulness. I can't even do that because I'm on my international page. So let's just move forward. All right, today starts our three-part series on mindfulness. Now, mindfulness, oh man, talk about an overused word. It is used in so many ways, and what we're going to do over the next three hangouts is we're going to talk about three pieces of mindfulness, but in a completely different way than I think it's discussed most of the time. And here's the reason. I'm turning up my thing here. There it is. I'm discussing it in a completely different way because I think most of what's talked about is way too shallow. Too shallow. Okay, and so we're going to talk about that in a really expansive way and talk about different layers and levels of mindfulness. So the three episodes today, we're going to talk about what is mindfulness, and we're going to get into three different layers that are completely beyond what I almost always hear talked about in this sense. Next week, we're going to talk about how today is what it is, next week's what it does, and number three is how to do it. And those conversations will change completely in the next 2 weeks because of how we approach it today. All right, so mindfulness is normally thought of as being present in the moment. That's a synonym that's used for it, or a synonymic description, if there is such a word. So when people think of it, they think about being present in the moment. And often it is talked about being quiet and experiencing everything that's going on around you. It is mainly focused on perhaps your senses and so forth. And that's all true, but it's a very small piece of what mindfulness really is. So I'm going to talk about mindfulness in three layers. And the first is the simplest, and it is mostly what we talk about when we talk about mindfulness. And so if you think of mindfulness as being in the present moment, instead of being somewhere else in your mind, either in time or space, then that involves your senses, your sensory experience. So let's explore that in a minute. Being unmindful is being somewhere else in time or space. So if I'm sitting outside in nice weather and I'm sitting in my chairs in the backyard, I am there. I am physically in the backyard, and in my mind, I am here in the backyard. I am not thinking about the studio. I am not thinking about shopping that I have to do. I'm not mentally in a store. I'm not mentally somewhere else in this process. I am actually here physically in that place. I'm spatially, I'm in the place that I mean to be, and temporally I am in the place that I mean to be. I'm in the present moment. I'm not thinking about something that went on yesterday. I'm not thinking about anticipating something going on tomorrow. So that is what I call physical mindfulness. I am physically, mentally in the same place, and that's the very first layer of mindfulness, and I call that where are you? Where are you in time and space? So that's the first one. Write that down. Where am I? So if you're mindful of your present, then that means being present physically and temporally in the space that you're in. So my mindfulness right now is sitting in my studio, even though it appears that I'm at the park. I have a green screen. It is a picture of the park across the street, and it's a nice park, and kids play there a lot, but you notice there's no kids running around. So I'm not in the real park, but that's okay. I am sitting in my studio looking at you, and I'm very aware of your presence. I'm very aware of the things that we're talking about now. Where am I right now is in this nice chair in front of my camera and my microphone, and my mind is here about what we're talking about. My body is here, and I am very mindful of this present circumstance. So that's where am I. So I want to invite you, if whether you're watching this now or whether you're watching it on YouTube or whether you're watching a replay, right now to be mindful of where you are. Turn your mind to physically where you are, the feeling of your feet, the feeling of your hands, whether they're down by your sides or on a desk like mine are, or wherever you are. What are the physical sensations in the time and space that you are right now? Okay, now that is a physical where are you mindfulness. And that is what a lot of people, and I won't pass any judgments, but they talk about that in mindfulness, and they say be present to the present moment, and that's a very useful practice. I'm going to invite either Rick or Manny, if you have anything to say about what you perceive or what you think from your experiences are the benefits of being mindful in that way that we've just talked about. So being mindful in the where you are, both temporally and spatially, at a given moment. Why is that valuable, and what experiences do you have when you have intentionally brought yourself from either thinking about being somewhere else physically or somewhere else temporally in time back to the present moment and experiencing your reality in all of the pieces? Any thoughts?
Well, yeah, I like mindfulness a little bit. When you're in the present moment and where you are, you're able to feel the energy that someone else has at the same time, and you're able to be relevant. You're able to answer to the situation instead of something else that's on your mind, someone else you spoke to. You're not cross-contaminating your experiences.
That's a powerful observation and important, because if I'm talking to you right now and I'm thinking about a party I'm going to have tonight, I'm not, but if I were, or if I'm thinking about what my wife and I are going to do later today, which we are going to do but I'm not thinking about, I'm not with you today, here, now. I'm somewhere else, both temporally and spatially. Temporally, I'm in tonight. Spatially, I'm in a restaurant or in a movie theater. And so spatially, I'm in a movie theater, and temporally, so you and I are not engaged. We are not exchanging present energies. And so, Manny, I like what you said about you are cross-contaminating. Think of it as a fungus. Think of it as a disease. And you are contaminating your present experience, both yours and the person who's there experiencing it with you. So you come away from this moment with, I'm not even sure what done, some rumination or thought about a future event, another place and time, and a woefully degraded experience in the present moment. So we would end our conversation about mindfulness, but about whatever it happened to be about, not having actually exchanged energy, information, and true connection. How important is that to healthy relationship development, Manny?
Well, can I have a geek moment?
You can geek my out. Go geek away.
Okay, there's two types of working memory. You have propositional working memory and implementational working memory. And when people aren't mindful enough to notice the difference in experience, with propositional working memory, it's like you're living your life with empty words, and there's always going to be a feeling of a gap, because the propositional memory tells you in theory what's supposed to happen, what you're supposed to feel, but it's not until you do the implementational, where you feel the story, you immerse yourself in it, that you actually close the gap and get the present, like the immersive experience.
Okay, so I'm going to use that geek, and I'm going to talk for a second to two of my clients here and other clients that may be watching. The criticality of what you have just said with respect to marketing material and other interactional material that you prepare for people, so that even though you're on a video, they can have effectively the implementational experience with you and your projection in that moment through that video is implementational instead of propositional, so they can connect with you in that way. And so you've said it in a way, I will say it back to you, everything that you do needs to be implementational in its presentation, so that the other person participating in their present moment can be implementational and not propositional. Does that make sense? And
Yep.
I didn't know to use those words like that, but I learned real fast. And so
Yep.
now I get it, and now it'll be part of the discussion, at least when we talk. All right, great. Rick, do you have anything to add about your experience or feeling about the benefits and criticality of relationship development or your own experiences with being mindful or not mindful?
Yes, yes, I absolutely find in my life, whereas I'm not a psychiatrist like Manny with a deep understanding of the beautiful, unbelievably amazing mechanics of how our brains work, I do appreciate from my own life experience how essential it is that I be present temporally and physically in a when I'm working on something, when I'm with somebody, in order to be in order for me to even experience the what that other person is saying, because I know that so much of the communication is not just the words, it's the body language and the energy and the subtleties that the other person that I'm projecting and that the other person is projecting to me, that I need to be engaging all of my awareness and presence in order to even detect it and respond to it accordingly. Otherwise, as you alluded to, it leaves an empty feeling for me and for the other person. And I've certainly lived that plenty of times in my life in the 25 years I've been married, and it's the more present I am, the more beautiful it is. So absolutely, this is amazingly powerful information.
So fantastic observation. Now we're just getting started, because now I'm going to dig into another level of mindfulness. So everybody watching this on YouTube, and I know there's several because a bunch of people responded yes, and thank you for being present today. I want you to think in your own mind, make some comments on the page or whatever about this is mainly to reflect, for you to think about the benefits or casualties that you've had from being or not being fully present physically. And this is just the where you are part. Okay, this is the first third, and I started with this one because it is the easiest to understand and the easiest to implement. Okay, it is the easiest to understand and the easiest to implement. Okay, and so and we're going to talk about the other 2/3 in a minute, but I want you to reflect. And I want you to vow on this Valentine's Day that whatever you choose to do, however you choose to exercise your agency, where you choose to be, who you choose to talk to, what you choose to experience, be fully present. End the day with a rich pile of, use Manny's words, implementational memory that is coated with the full energy of experience. The full energy of your own experience and the glory and beauty of having been fully present to all the senses, not just the person's energy, but the smells and sounds. When I do my morning meditation walk, and I am not thinking, and I have it divided into very specific segments, and I can do that because I walk for a long time, and so I take part of it to simply be. And I feel the concrete under my foot at every step, and I hear every sound, and I participate in the temperature on the different parts of my skin, and I feel the clothes, the shirt, or rubbing my body. And if I have something on my neck, sometimes I wear a little set of headphones that are not in yet, because I now have another part where I listen to some devotional scripture. But I feel every single thing, and I even feel my heartbeat and the breath pacing and every piece about it, so that that section of it is completely tuned. Completely tuned. And I can tell you benefits personally from that. So let me give you some very specific things. I can lay down anywhere at any time and put myself to sleep, usually in less than 3 minutes, sometimes in 30 seconds. That's a practice I've learned to do by getting in tune with my body. I can slow my heart rate down. Just practically stop breathing and just drop. That's really important when stress happens. It's really important when you want to go to sleep. It's important when you want to deal with things and you want to pay attention to possible ideas. It's so powerful, but it only comes by being completely aware of and in touch with my physical self when I'm alone. And being mindful when I'm alone is what I'm talking about. Being mindful with others has given me a unique ability as a coach to perceive very instantaneously and deeply what people are giving off in energy. And that's a really important skill and blessing that I have, to be able to understand people's energy and help them explore it, even though they may not even know what it is, because they may not be being mindful, and talk about the energy around them and what they're giving off and talking about and how they're feeling right now. And so those are really important things that will benefit you in your relationships and in your self-awareness that I've experienced. All right, let's talk about the next level. And I want you guys that are watching this to think about this and vow that at least today you will explore the beauties of that. My left eye is bothering me. If I look like I'm squinting, I am. Something's wrong with my contact, but I'm not going to mess with it right now. So I want you to explore that and give yourself that gift today, and also whoever you're with, however long you're with them today. Okay? All right. Number two, that I described number one as where you are. And I know I described number two as what you are. Okay, now there's a delicate balance between being mindful of what you are, and I'll explain that in a minute, because you can define, you know, where you are as anything you want, and what you are as anything you want. And I'm going to talk about the third one in a minute. I'm going to give definitions to them so they make context in this discussion. Where you are is physically, your geography, and temporally. So we talked about being present both temporally and spatially in the place that you physically and temporally are. What you are, there are a series of roles in your life that you have chosen, did I say chosen? Yeah, chosen to accept, and that you continue day after day to continue to choose to accept. And I say choose because sometimes we think we're stuck and we have to, and I'm this and I'm that, and I don't want to do this. And some of them might be employees, some might be parents, some might be spouse or a significant other, SO, some might be, you know, a member of a club. They're things that you choose to do, roles that you do, and they're in society, and they're in your, you know, your worldview. They might be in your political party and your church, and the thing that helps you, you know, your family define your worldview and so forth. But they're what you are. Being mindful of that is another layer. Now, you can be mindful of what you are and get lost in the where you are. So you're not being where you are by thinking about being what you are. And so here's where I want to make the distinction between being mindful and thinking. Okay? Being mindful, let's go back to where you are because it's the easiest to understand. When I'm feeling the temperature or the wind on my skin, I don't have to be thinking about the hair follicles being massaged by the wind, or I don't have to think about the sensation of the tickling wind on them, or I don't have to think about the sound of a car going by far away on the highway that I can just sort of barely perceive. I am simply aware of it. So, and that's easy to see, much easier to see in the where you are than the what you are. So let's just pick friend as a role that you've adopted in the circumstance that you're in. Now, if you're by yourself, what you are is different. And that might move into the third category. But let's say for a moment that you're with somebody, doesn't matter who, a friend. Mindful of the friend role that you have chosen doesn't mean, I wonder what a friend would do in this circumstance. I wonder what I should do. I might say this or I might say that. That is thinking about being a friend, and that has an appropriate place and time, and I'm not saying you shouldn't think about things. What I am saying is, in the moment, a layer of mindfulness beyond simply the temporal and spatial mindfulness is the role that you are playing. And being mindful energetically of what a friend role is. And that means being aware of that. That might be true as a husband. Now, there are times I know as a husband, I think about, today's Valentine's Day. I wonder what things are the right things to do today. In the act of being mindful in the moment, I no longer am thinking about it, but I am experiencing it, but I am experiencing it in the role of both a person and a husband to my beautiful wife and business partner. So I am mindful of the situation with an overlay and a lens of the husband role, and the lover role today is more than the husband role. So today my mindfulness role is as a lover to my wife. And I want her and me to experience our roles, my role, because I can't control hers, in that way. And so that's a mindfulness piece that I want you to consider in addition to simply the temporal and spatial, but a role mindfulness that colors and that influences the other pieces of mindfulness that you do. And I think it is critical when you have interactions particularly, because it changes the way you experience some of those things. Now, I'm going to open the dialogue for discussion, and I want to know, first of all, does that second layer of mindfulness make sense? It's not often talked about. We usually limit ourselves to the where piece, but I want to add this piece to the dialogue because I think being mindful, not thinking about, but being mindful of that is a critical piece to add to the texture and depth of our interactions. Thoughts?
Being an engineer, I have an incredibly hard time doing that sometimes because I think about it first, and I have to really work at being it, like being a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, it becomes habitual, but then the habit is not necessarily the proper response. Sometimes it requires a whole nother level of presence and connection to that person, and in order to be properly responsive to them. So yes, for me anyway, I have a miserably hard time sometimes making myself stop thinking about it and being it.
So that's a wildly good observation, and here's what I'm going to add to that little piece, and then I'd be interested to hear Manny's thoughts about that. What is what I want to add to that piece? The word "making myself not do that" is a thought that you have, and it probably feels like that. I'm going to suggest another way to think about it, and instead of making yourself not, try approaching it with an allowing yourself to be. And it may feel more like I'm making myself go away from this, but that's like not thinking about a white elephant when you're trying to learn how to meditate, or a pink elephant, or a pink flamingo or something. You know, the minute you focus on something to not do it, you become that, and you do that, and you think that, and you feel that. So that's like when you teach someone to meditate in the most basic sense, you usually start with the breath or some mantra, but the purpose of that is to give a refuge, a focal point to bring yourself back to, rather than fleeing from an intruding thought or fighting with an intruding thought. You simply bring yourself with an intention back to a given place. And so in the thinking, when you think about friendness, that's appropriate. And you might devote some time thinking about what a friend is, and then going back and forth between thinking about it and then feeling. So when I think about what a friend is, what does that feel like? And sort of allowing your mind to float, and this is part of meditation practice, to learn to experience what the states of what you are, what they feel like. Where are they in the body? Does the sense of friend occur here in the breast, where the heart is, in the stomach? Is it a sense? I mean, some sensations are localized, and some permeate the body in a larger way. And so part of a little bit more advanced meditative practice is to begin to use the meditation process to explore and become familiar with the sensations in the body and in the spirit, which is another layer of meditation beyond the body experience, of what those different roles feel like. And when they feel more comfortable, like a jacket that you know what it feels like every time you put it on, you're able to adopt and be in that role faster and easier without thinking about it, and certainly without thinking about how not to think about it, which is a very, very difficult place to structure it. Manny, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the way I think about it is, I guess I had to go through a process of realizing the stuff that I had overlearned too structurally. Because one of the things they did with us is we learned a lot of illnesses, we learned a lot of body parts and stuff. But it does a weird thing to you when you almost take yourself. One of my attendings, one of my mentors, he has said, "Don't become a watcher," because when you study the stuff too much and you can't make that leap to embodying it, it's like you're living your life outside of your roles and your presence. So I had to learn to like make the intuitive leap to go to make it anoetic, well, to make it fully noetic from anoetic.
Mm-hmm. All right, good. Well, then that's great advice, because again, the more we define a role as a sense of actions or a particular sense of things, then the less we're able to experience it simply in its own sake and for its own set of energies. And so that's true. I'm going to move on to part 3 because we're going to run out of time. Part 3 is the deepest and the most difficult to do, and it permeates both time that you're alone and time that you're with others. And it is a distinction on what you are, and the third part is be mindful of who you are. This is a very difficult concept to grasp, because as soon as you ask people who they are, they usually tell you what their job is, or they tell you a bunch of roles that they have. So they say, I'm a doctor, I'm a coach, I'm an engineer, or I'm a proud dad of 10 kids and soon to be 20 grandchildren. Okay, that would be me. Or that's what they say, I am something, and they usually list their job or one of the other roles. And they either have never thought about, or they don't know how to express something that is far more central and essential. And I say essential that way because I'm really thinking about the essence. So it's an essential piece of their being. And maybe you watching this right now have never spent much time thinking about who you are. Who you are might start with your name. It might also start with the name that you had in another place. It might start with the essence of a being, a creative energy. Those of you that are religious, I am a son of a deity, a son of God. And in that essence, I have a creative place and power and energy. And whether or not you ascribe that to religion or anything else, it is evident to the casual observer that the essence of our being is more than the chemistry of our physiology. The essence of ourselves is more than a name and far more than the roles that we adopt and continue to choose to adopt over time, and certainly far more than a temporal and spatial location that we occupy at a given moment. So as the roles piece, what you are, and because we're almost out of time, the who piece, I'm not even going to begin to do justice to, but we'll get a lot more of that in the subsequent weeks as we talk about what it does, what mindfulness at these 3 layers do for you, and then how to do this in the subsequent weeks. But the essence of you, who you are, and how you choose to either language it or experience it or both is an additional coloration. So if the essence of you is as a cog in a machine and a fairly worthless biological entity that occupies space and time, processes food in one end and out the other, and has some experiences, if that is essentially, and again I'm saying that word in a strange way on purpose, if that is the essence of your being in your own perception of who you are, that will color the roles and the experience that you have in the who and the where and when in a dramatic and mostly unconscious way. And so foundationally, understanding for your own benefit who you are is the powerful beginning of your mindfulness state, and being unaware or choosing not to take the extended time that it takes to come to grips with and then to peace, to be at peace with that. First to broach it, come to grips with it, and then be at peace with it, is an entirely separate matter and the subject of the deepest form of meditation, where you connect with, primal energy and the energetic states of the universe. I call that, I have an entire course that I teach on relationships, and I call that the quantum relationship, which is your relationship with the universe and yourself. And so that layer of mindfulness is foundational and colors, without intention or being awareness, every other piece of your mindfulness experience, and yet it is the one least understood, least practiced, and least consciously constructed. Because you actually have, and this is the important thing, just like you have the ability to choose to be mindful and choose how you experience the where and the when, which is the top layer, you also have the ability and freedom to choose how and where you direct and create the mindfulness about who you are. So we'll just do that little teaser, because that is an enormously deep topic and worthy of significant both conversation and meditation to come to grips with that. And I cannot, or simply do not possess the words to adequately emphasize the foundational nature of that layer and level of mindfulness. So I'm going to open it up again to my participants to see if they've got things to add about that rather mystical rumination at the conclusion, and then we'll go on.
First, I will thank you for the guidance to upgrade my terminology to use allow instead of make myself, to allow myself. That's a beautiful distinction, Kellen. Thank you. And on this part of what you're talking about, I have spent a huge amount of time certainly in the last year anyway, thinking about who I am and looking to allow myself to experience who I am. And a lot of that has taken me at least to the place of what am I called to do? Why am I here? What are my true passions? And how can I serve myself, my family, my environment, my surroundings, the community in which I live, and so on. And you're also even taking that a step beyond, which is a place where I would like to understand and go, because I feel like I'm still looking at that kind of from the perspective of what's my higher calling is a role. But I know that there's something way beyond that, and you alluded to it beautifully, and that sounds really, really a delight to be able to actually connect to that. So thank you.
You bet. Manny, any thoughts in closing?
No, you nailed it. I'm just resonating.
Okay, cool. I think Joy may be on downstairs, and I haven't called on you. Joy, if you're there and if you have something to add, I see you on in my suit and tie, but I think that might be you. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Hi there. No, I'm good. I've been this discussion about mindfulness, and it just brings to mind for me, sometimes just pressing a reset button and just getting out of the craziness of the day-to-day stuff always. So I've just been thinking a lot about that. I don't really have too much to add right now, but it's just been a very good discussion.
Thank you. I just wanted to give you the opportunity to chime in if you wanted. So that's perfect. So we'll have to end today because we're over our 30 minutes. And I would encourage you to explore all of those levels of mindfulness, particularly on this Valentine's Day, and particularly as you reset and you think about that. And while the deepest and most difficult is who you are, and start with where and when, and practice that, because experience at allowing yourself to at least do that. It's an external, thing mostly, and it's an internal practice regarding an externality, almost. And so that's one way to think about it anyway. And practice there. I started with that again because that's the easiest. So I would encourage you to enjoy your Valentine's Day to the max, whatever that might be, however you might express that. and give some deep and meaningful thought to this notion of mindfulness and the layers and complexities and beauties that it brings to your life. Next hangout, I think that's going to be next week. We're going to head and we're going to talk about what it does for you, why it matters. And then the third week we'll talk about some practices that will allow you to do that. Thanks for coming today, everybody that was here, and we'll see you next time.